So as the sun slowly sets on this Western Australian beach, I want to talk to you about something that is absolutely fundamental, and that is life itself. We're going to talk about the source, so the origin, and the maintenance of life generally, and in the human body as well. We're going to talk about the loss or the degradation, the decomposition of life. And we're going to talk about the important role that the smallest life forms that we know about play in the production, the maintenance, and ultimately the degradation and the cessation of our life. We're talking human biology, we're talking biochemistry, we're talking metaphysics, we're talking philosophy, we're talking spiritual and profound, and also very simple and very basic. And I'm excited to share it with you today. So to get us started, let's break life down into its smallest parts, and then let's find out what we can learn from the smallest aspects of life, or the smallest embodiments of life, about the macrocosm and about ultimately life itself. All living organisms are either aerobic or anaerobic, depending either on aerobic respiration or anaerobic respiration for their survival. As the name suggests, aerobic organisms depend on oxygen for respiration. Glucose is broken down in the presence of oxygen, and this glucose is converted into energy, or ATP, that the organism then uses for fuel. Aerobic respiration produces waste products like carbon dioxide and water, which are easy waste products for our bodies to deal with. We just breathe out the carbon dioxide and we either use the water or we excrete it through one of our excretion pathways. Anaerobic respiration, on the other hand, is the process of converting glucose into energy without using oxygen, utilizing a process of fermentation instead. Now, this kind of respiration produces waste products such as lactic acid and ethanol, which are far more difficult for our bodies to get rid of. And in fact, both of these substances are great and significant contributors to a plethora of diseased states that are commonly experienced by humans. Now, I know we're getting technical with the biochemistry here. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible, but bear with me. It bears good fruit, I promise. So, although anaerobic respiration produces far less energy than aerobic respiration, like aerobic respiration can produce 38 ATP, or molecules of energy, from one molecule of glucose, whereas anaerobic respiration can only produce 2. So a pretty significant difference in energy production there. Anaerobic respiration does allow some organisms to live in environments where no oxygen is present. So although far less efficient, it's a pretty clever adaptation that allows some organisms to live in places that they otherwise couldn't, thriving deep in the soils, the seas, and the darkest depths of our guts. Humans, of course, are aerobes. The cells of our bodies, and a great many of the microbes living in and on our bodies, require oxygen for respiration. Without oxygen, our cells eventually perish, and we eventually perish along with them. We need oxygen to produce energy to keep our bodies alive. But not all of the microbes living on and in our bodies perish if we perish. Even if we perish, there are some microbes living in our bodies which are anaerobic and which would survive. Ultimately, if we don't feed our microbes food and oxygen, the anaerobes thrive and consume our body tissues through a process of fermentation. This is the process of decomposing. Anaerobes munching away, thriving in an environment that has lost all of its oxygen. Now, we're pretty adaptive as well. Temporarily, our aerobic cells in our bodies can become anaerobic if deprived of oxygen. And in a similar way, some aerobic microbes can become anaerobic when forced into an environment with no oxygen in order to survive. Now, if we deprive our body or parts of our body of oxygen, the starving cells of our body will desperately switch over to producing energy through a process of fermentation, causing our tissues to begin decomposing as inflammation and lactic acid rise. When the oxygen-starved tissue runs out of nitrates, sulfates, glucose, and oxygen to perform respiration, the cells become desperate and cannibalistic as they begin devouring the organic tissues of the body. Rot sets in and the tissue dies if oxygen isn't reintroduced soon enough. Similarly, in the absence of oxygen, anaerobic microorganisms thrive, using nitrates, sulfates, glucose, and organic matter, i.e. your food or your tissues, to thrive, leaving ethanol and lactic acid in their wake. But unlike our bodies that would ultimately perish in a prolonged state of oxygen deprivation, clever little microbes have adapted, well, partially adapted. Some aerobic microorganisms have adapted and can switch between aerobic and anaerobic respiration depending on the conditions they find themselves in. This is true for yeast that we use to make bread or to produce alcohol. It's the microbes that are oxygen deprived that switch over to anaerobic respiration and produce ethanol as a byproduct. So your booze is poisonous residue left over from microorganisms that are oxygen deprived, starving, and devouring organic matter. Now, our bodies are built out of tens of trillions of oxygen-dependent cells. And for our biological creature to thrive, we must get the breath of life into every one of our cells. They need oxygen. Which means, of course, we must breathe, and we must be able to transport this oxygen around our body, letting this life force reach every single cell. But not only that, our bodies are actually home and host to more microorganism cells than human cells. We are more bacteria, fungi, yeast, virus, and parasite than we are human. And, in fact, every process in our body is dependent on these microorganisms. We need them to break down our food, convert matter into energy, maintain pH, build and activate our immune system, and on and on and on. Even our mitochondria, which are the powerhouses of our cells, were originally bacteria. Tiny clumps of living force. Life stuff, which kind of crawled into lifeless matter, decided that it liked it there, and ignited matter into activity and consciousness. Microbes are the enablers, igniters, and devourers of life itself in this plane of material existence. Basically, without microbes, there is no link between matter and life itself. Call it spirit, call it soul, call it electricity, call it consciousness, call it fire mist, call it light, call it God, whatever makes you the most comfortable. Without microbes, matter becomes senseless, meaning without sense. And life itself becomes vague, amorphous, shapeless. And we, a splendid merging of life and matter, perish. We cease to be. Microbes are the middlemen, the combiners, the glue that sticks us to our bodies. They devour, dividing things up into smaller and smaller parts. They transform, converting these parts and changing their form. And they build, combining these parts in new and unique configurations, responding to and shaping the environment that they are in. Microbes are the givers, the sustainers, and the destroyers of life. As long as our microbes are well looked after, Provided with the oxygen for the aerobes and the organic matter for the anaerobes that sustain them and keep them in balance, we live. If they thrive, we thrive. But if we don't keep our microbes happy, the ones that are necessary for providing us with life perish, and the ones which survive with or without us thrive, devouring our body tissues for fuel when deprived of other organic matter or food. Our bodies are in a constant state of creation and decreation, of composition and decomposition. And it is largely the microbes in our bodies which facilitate this process. It is good and right and necessary that some decomposition happens. How else could you break down your food? How could your body slough off and get rid of old cells? How could your body clean up, devour, and remove broken tissue? It is good and right and necessary that some creation happens. How else could you build new cells, create energy, build new tissue when old tissue is lost? But it's a very fine balancing act. Too much decomposition causes the body to age and, ultimately, to break down and perish. But imagine if you were always just creating, building new tissue without decomposition and decreation. Relentless building would see you very quickly perish as well. So maintenance is balanced creation and decomposition. And largely, this balance depends on keeping your microbes healthy, balanced, and thriving. Too much creation of anaerobes can cause inflammation and degeneration as tissue is literally broken down and fermented. Too much creation of aerobes can cause uncontrollable growth and proliferation. Similarly, a lack of oxygen in the tissues of your body can cause your cells to become anaerobic, producing inflammation and toxic waste products that accumulate and cause degeneration. And this lack of oxygen can cause anaerobic microbes to thrive where they shouldn't be, as they devour organic tissue, your own, and produce further toxic load, leading to accelerated aging, inflammation, and degeneration. On the other end of the spectrum, the presence of too much oxygen where it shouldn't be, like in parts of the digestive tract where the main activity should be the breaking down of ingested organic matter by anaerobes, can cause aerobes to thrive in deep and dark places where the body isn't expecting them, allowing them to proliferate. Basically, when our microbes are imbalanced, we become unwell. Our bodies and the very natural processes of creation, maintenance, and decomposition become imbalanced. We unhealthily proliferate. We become full of toxic waste. We become inflamed. We become malnourished. We age terribly. We degenerate because our cells and our microbes aren't provided with what they require. But how do we keep our bodies in balance? The answer is so simple. No doubt you're gonna roll your eyes and boo me off the screen. You've got to breathe. Breathe deeply, all the way down into your belly, all the time. Shallow breathing deprives your body of oxygen, which causes your tissues to become oxygen deprived, which causes your cells and your microbes to shift to anaerobic respiration, which causes toxic buildup, inflammation, and degeneration. Get the breath of life into every cell. You are an aerobe, and a great bulk of your microbes are aerobes as well. But it's not enough to just breathe. That oxygen needs to be moved around your body. And how is oxygen moved around the body? It's transported in your blood. You must move and use your body. Contract your muscles to encourage proper blood flow. Bounce on your toes, go for a walk, pick something heavy up, wiggle every tissue and cell that requires oxygen, which means every single part of your body. Eat real food. Food from nature contains the life force that your body requires. Man-made and processed foods are dense, heavy, life and oxygenless. These types of materials are just lumps of matter that require intense anaerobic microbial activity to be broken down, feeding the tissue-devouring and toxin-producing microorganisms that live in your digestive tract and causing them to proliferate and end up where they shouldn't be, leading to infection, inflammation, disease, and degeneration. Make contact with the earth. Stop fearing microbes. Without being ridiculous, contact with microbes helps build and strengthen your immune system. In nature, you will come into contact with microbes which challenge, stretch, and fortify your immune system. And you will come into contact with microbes that are good and necessary in order for your body to thrive. The natural foods that you eat and the natural environment that you come into contact with is absolutely riddled with gut and life-supporting microbes in their perfect, naturally prescribed combinations. Obviously, you need to be responsible. Foods which are in a state of decomposition will be riddled with anaerobic tissue-devouring microbes or aerobic proliferating microbes, which are not in balance and which can lead to diseased states in your body. So we go for fresh, living food, or food as close to life as possible. Another tip, get in the sunshine. Responsibly, of course. But sunshine feeds your mitochondria and makes your aerobic cells and microbes happy. Simple as that. Stop slathering your skin and filling your body with toxic chemicals. These kill off your microbes and coat your cells in a layer which blocks them from being able to take up oxygen. This starves your cells and your tissues of vital energy and makes you sick. Your skin is your body's largest organ. Let it breathe. Or else oxygen-hating microbes will thrive. It's as simple as that. Hello, bacterial and yeast infections. Wear natural, breathable fibers and use natural products and ingredients instead. And this is a really big one. Only take antibiotics if you really need them. And I can't stress this enough. By the way, all of those disinfecting sprays and wipes and creams that you are using are antibiotic, sterilizing every surface they come into contact with. There's no better way to absolutely destroy your immune system, mess up your gut, and create all sorts of terrible infections and imbalances in your body. A sterile life, a life void of microbes, is a life void of health and proper nutrition. Ideally, we would all be living in a way which would keep our microbes in a healthy balance. But sometimes things happen which massively throw this balance out. When this happens and infection is rampant, antibiotics can absolutely be useful. But remember that depending on which of the two they target, antibiotics are not discerning and they will impact and ultimately wipe out any and potentially all aerobic or anaerobic bacteria in and on your body. It's not just the so-called bad guys that get wiped out. You become a sterile environment. This means that you are wiping the slate clean. If you wipe out a great chunk of your aerobic bacteria, it allows your anaerobic bacteria to thrive, sometimes where they shouldn't be thriving, and vice versa. This can and does lead to knock-on infections, and fighting one infection could very well cause another infection to pop up somewhere else. I have seen clients who have been chasing symptoms around their body for decades, like playing whack-a-mole, but the mole is bacteria and the whacker is antibiotics. Antibiotics also knock out your immune system, and you need your immune system to fight infections. It's a vicious cycle, We get an infection, which our immune system would ideally fight off very naturally, all on its own, but our immune system is malfunctioning because of our diet being poor or because of some antibiotics we took once before. So we can't fight the infection adequately. So we take antibiotics, which wipe out our immune system and lead to another infection and more antibiotics and on and on and on. Antibiotics can also produce supermicrobes which are immune to antibiotic treatment. Every time you take antibiotics, your microbes get smarter and stronger. They don't want to be killed. Duh. So they adjust and adapt themselves to be able to withstand the antibiotic attacks, becoming mutated supermicrobes which can't be killed. But if they can't be killed, it means even your own immune system has difficulty keeping them in check, and they can very quickly spread and take over with no way of fighting them off. Sometimes antibiotics are necessary. Sometimes things have just gone too far, and wiping the slate clean is the best thing that you can do. But please choose your antibiotic use wisely. Consider and use other alternatives wherever possible. Nature provides some awesome remedies, and despite what your doctor might automatically prescribe for all cases of sore throat or flu, antibiotics do not fight viral infections. They are effective against bacteria only. I see antibiotics being prescribed for viral infections left, right, and center, and it just makes no sense at all. I know some of the doctors are doing their best and they're just doing what they're told to do, but it pays to ask questions and to think for yourself. So if you do need to take antibiotics because you have a bacterial overgrowth and it's causing you harm, please do your best to protect your good microbes and take some pretty serious pre- and probiotics to feed, replenish, and replace them. Take care of your invisible friends. Your life depends on them. So once again, we cycle back to the point that I always make. Nature is your life, your sustenance, your remedy, and your balanced best friend. Return your body to nature. Breathe nature, drink nature, consume nature, come into contact with nature, trusting her intelligent and harmonizing design. You evolved alongside nature, microbes and all. So nature holds the secrets and the keys to your thriving. And for goodness sake, breathe. Breathe deeply. Your cells and your microbes are yearning for it. You are playing host to a mighty host of microbes that are depending on you. They will do right by you if you do right by them. If they thrive, you thrive. If you thrive, they thrive. It's a shared body and it's a co-creation. So stop killing your friends and stop viewing your friends as your enemy. Love and take care of your body and set an example to your microbial friends. Thanks for joining me. Subscribe, follow along, and I'll see you next time.